Chapter 4. The Future We Promised. Double receipts, double succeeds. The first time Elio brought up the idea of children, they weren't even married yet. It was late, nearly midnight, and the soft glow of the city lights spilled through the tall windows of his home, catching the gold edge of their wine glasses. They'd just returned from dinner, something simple but intimate, far from the noise of crowds and neon signs. The house smelled faintly of aged cedar and something floral from the candles he'd lit earlier. Music played low in the background, the notes drifting in and out like memory. They were sitting on the couch, their legs tangled together, her head resting on his chest, his arm curved around her shoulders like it belonged there. His hand traced lazy lines across her arm. He wasn't looking at her when he said it. "Do you think about the future?" She hadn't answered immediately. Questions like that didn't come up often between them. Their connection had always felt rooted in the present, soft moments, whispered promises, long looks over quiet dinners. But she had thought about it. Quietly. Secretly. Especially with him. "All the time," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think you'd be a good mother," he murmured. Seven blinked, the words settling into her slowly, like warm water seeping into stone. She wasn't sure what she had expected him to say, but it hadn't been that. Not because she hadn't imagined it, motherhood, a home, something soft and rooted, but because no one had ever looked at her that way. Like she was someone you could build a life around. "What makes you think that?" she asked. Elio looked down at her, brushing a piece of hair from her cheek with his knuckle. "Because you don't love easily. You think too much. You're careful. Everything you do with intention. That's rare." She'd closed her eyes at that. Not because she was afraid of the truth in his words, but because she didn't know how to hold it yet. From then on, the topic surfaced more often. Late-night walks through the neighborhood. Early mornings when they watched the sun rise from the back deck. They would talk about the kind of future they wanted to build. A home. A family. He wanted 2 kids. A boy and a girl, if it worked out that way. She didn't care about the numbers. She just wanted a space that felt lived in. A garden. A kitchen that smelled like rosemary. Laughter that didn't feel borrowed. "You'd grow herbs," he said once, smiling. "I can see you with dirt on your hands and a basket full of lavender." "That's the dream," she replied, half laughing. And it had been. After the wedding, a small, elegant ceremony with no family on either side, they began what felt like the real beginning. She finished law school and passed the bar. Elio took time off to celebrate with her, surprising her with a quiet trip to the coast. Long drives. Secluded beaches. He never stopped supporting her, never made her feel like she had to shrink to make space for him. He always said he loved how big her mind was. How sharp. In the first year of their marriage, she would wake up early and study case files while he brewed her coffee. Sometimes he'd press a kiss to the back of her neck and whisper, "You're going to change the world." He said it so sincerely, so often, that she started to believe it. They were building something. And for a while, it felt like the kind of life you only saw in magazine spreads. Calm. Ordered. Beautiful. But as time passed, something began to shift, not drastically, not loudly, but in that subtle way that only someone who listens closely would notice. Elio began to talk less about the future. Conversations about children were always met with soft deferrals. "When things settle down. Let's get through this quarter first." Soon. He worked longer hours. He became more focused on the house, the condition of the floors, the way the curtains hung, the precise alignment of the picture frames in the hallway. Seven didn't complain. She'd always been the type to keep her questions to herself. But she noticed. The way he examined the house as if it were an extension of himself. The way he watched her when they had guests over, subtle, but unmistakable. Like he was measuring her. Like she was part of the image he had to uphold. One afternoon, she found him standing in the hallway, staring at one of their wedding photos. It was a beautiful shot, her hand in his, their faces alight with sunlight and something softer, something more vulnerable. He didn't speak when she joined him. He just kept looking at the photo like he was trying to see past it. Then, without turning to her, he said, "I like things to be right." Seven stayed quiet. He continued, voice low. "Perfect, even. That's why this house matters. Why you matter." She turned toward him, unsure if it was meant to comfort or control. "My clients," he went on, finally glancing at her, "they don't come here to relax. They come here to see what stability looks like. What control feels like. They expect me to be precise. Unshakable. That includes the space I live in. The life I live. He stepped closer, touched her chin with gentle fingers. You've always been perfect for that. The words should have made her feel proud. Seen. Cherished. Instead, they settled like frost along her spine. That night, as she lay beside him in the dark, she traced the edges of the charm around her neck. It had warmed from her skin but felt colder now. She looked at the ceiling, trying to picture the garden again. The lavender. The herbs. Her hands in the dirt. But all she saw was the photo in the hallway, and the way he looked at it, like a man trying to preserve something that was already starting to fade. Chapter 5.